Welcome back to Tutorial Tidbits. I'm Elizabeth St. Hilaire and I am sheltered in place in California. So I am making some videos on the gel plate in hopes that you can join me in some art therapy, in some time away from the news, in some just pushing color around on the gel plate, just making prints for no other reason, with no agenda, just enjoying the process. We need some art therapy these days. We need to just push color around and make some time for art in our lives. So I encourage you to get kids involved. I encourage you to get whoever is staying with you involved. You don't have to be artistic to enjoy this process. Young, old, anyone. It's a great way to take some time away from the news and sort of focus on art. So this is going to be a two-part series. This week we're going to do stencils on the gel plate. So I'm going to go through the basics of using a stencil. We're going to use one stencil. We're going to use the paint that you have on hand. We're going to use paper that you have on hand. No precious papers, no precious materials. We're going to enjoy the process of the gel plate. I'm going to go through the basics of the stencils so that you can get people who have never used the plate involved with you. And so let's get started. Let's take some time to embrace art and help us make some time for art therapy and some time with others sharing what we love. So let's get started. Welcome back. So today I want to really encourage you to play with your gel plate. I think if we put too much pressure on ourselves to create amazing collage paper right now, or I know how I'm feeling these days that painting has been difficult. It's hard right now to get into the mindset of painting. That's a creative zone that sometimes can be harmed by outside influences. So I think some of you are probably also feeling that way. So I'm going to encourage us to play with our gel plates for the next couple of tutorial tidbits with no agenda. Let's just have fun. Let's experiment. Let's use paper that is not precious. Let's use paints that we have on hand and supplies that we have on hand, and see what we can come up with. So I've got my my soft rubber brayer. That is an inexpensive foam brayer, but it basically mimics a hard brayer because it's got a very smooth foam surface. Any brayer that you have will work. So I've got my brayer. I've got some golden paints here. I always use the fluid acrylics for my collage papers, but since we're just going to play, I want you to use any kind of acrylic that you have on hand. So the full body tube acrylics, they'll work. The fluid acrylics will work. I've got we're going to do a stencil today, and I've got one stencil of my own design. It's from joggles.com. If you don't have this stencil, you can use any stencil you have on hand. And I've got this great book, speaking of paper that is not precious. Somebody gave me this book, Fundamentals of Plasma Physics, and you can imagine that none of anything in here means or makes any sense to me. So let's just rip up this book and use this paper. The fact that we're not using precious, expensive paper allows us to play and not worry about our results, not have any expectation. We're just going to have a good time here. So I'm going to tear some sheets out of that. And thank you for this. So there's how many pages are in this? This is 500 pages, 500 sheets of paper. That's fantastic. And then I've got my gel plate, my gel press gel plate, and it is directly on my non-stick craft mat surface. Now this was on back order with joggles.com, and I believe it's back in stock, and I absolutely love it. Nothing sticks to it. Everything wipes off of it, and I've got my gel plate right on there. All right. So what we're going to start out with is some solid sheets of color that we can play with our stencils on top of. So I'm going to do a stencil lesson today because this Because the stencil is the easiest, simplest technique for immediate gratification. And I know that some of you are new to the gel plate. Some of you haven't used your gel plate in quite some time. So immediate gratification sounds like a good thing, doesn't it? I think immediate gratification is good all the time, but it's especially good when you're just playing. So we're going to use a stencil so that you can get some fun results fast, and you can get excited about your gel plate, and you can get excited about grabbing your family members or your kids and having them join you with the gel plate, because this is fun for everyone. You don't have to be artistic to make this work. We're going to start with some light colored solids. So that means we're going to start with light colors and make full prints on those physics pages. I've got my brayer and I'm going to put a light color on here. So I'm going to start with the full body tube paint. Teal is an opaque color. You can see right here that you don't see any tick marks, any black tick marks through the teal like you do through the phthalo blue. So that goes to show you that this is translucent and this is not. So not only is it a light color, but it's an opaque color. So we want to put that on the bottom layer, because if we put it on the top layer, it's going to block out everything underneath it. So, or you could experiment with putting it on the top layer and blocking out everything underneath it, because that could be cool too. There's really no right or wrong way, but I'm going to start with this on the bottom so that I can see the layers on top. So I'm just going to put a couple blobs of that, or one blob, because that's pretty big. I'm used to using the fluid acrylics where I just drip them on. So that's a pretty big blob, and it might be enough. So let's roll that out. This brayer's got some paint stuck in its grooves on the side, apparently. I can't seem to get away from noisy brayers. Every single brayer that I use makes noise. All right, so a nice thin layer. You saw that I only did one small drop of that. Also, when we are cleaning the brayer, we are gonna clean it by rolling it off onto a clean sheet of paper. So I'm just gonna open up this book and roll the brayer off until I don't get any more paint transferring. So let's make a print. And there we've got a nice solid blue print, and that's going to be a base print. So we're working with light colored solids right now. I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to set my plasma book over here where I can roll my brayer off to clean it. And my next color, I'm going to use a little bit of my fluid acrylic, yellow, dairy lied yellow. I'm going to leave, I've got some teal still on my brayer, and when I mix this together, it's going to make a nice green gold color. So I'm going to put a few droplets of the fluid acrylic. I'm going to roll that with my brayer with the teal, and it's going to become a little bit of a light green, sort of a yellow green, because I did clean the brayer off pretty well, but I had some blue around the edges. Now, if you don't have a physics plasma book on hand, you can most certainly use your kids' old homework papers. You can use sheet music, old book pages, whatever you have around. Let's just work with some non-precious paper so that you feel like you can just play and see what happens. So this came out good. So this one has got the yellow, but it's also got the teal around the edges, and it's picking up a little red from a previous print. So here's another relatively nice, relatively light solid sheet. We want to stay with light colors on the bottom layer so that we can go over them with a darker layer. So let's do another yellow, and we'll put a little orange next to it, and we will ombre them. So we'll spread the yellow, and then we'll spread the orange. We can do two colors this way, two light colors. Let's do a little metallic gold. So I'm going to spread that out on the plate. And I've still got orange in my brayer. I did not clean it off, so I'm going to let that blend together. Now I'm going to get sort of a golden orange. I intentionally didn't clean it off because I'm sticking with warm colors. So that's not going to affect it adversely. If you had a blue on here and you really wanted this to be orange, you would definitely need to clean the brayer off. So now I've got sort of a nice orange gold. I'm going to print that over this sheet so that blue teal will show through. A Another nice light colored solid. We're just making a few light colored solids here and setting them aside so that when we get into our stencil, we've got pages to print on that are not white. So we want to start with light colored solids so that we're not starting on white. Okay, now we've got a pile of light colored solids to use our stencils on. And now I'm going to come back with my phthalo blue. And I think that that will go over, this is a slightly darker sheet, so this is a nice dark blue to go over this slightly darker sheet. So I'm going to put a little phthalo blue down. And that's a pretty dark color. So I'm going to add a little of the fluid acrylic manganese to it. A little lighter. I'm going to roll those together. And then we're going to bring in that stencil that you have on hand. So the paint goes down first, the stencil goes into the paint, and then that prepared blue sheet goes on top. Now we're going to spread this out. We're going to press down in between the spaces of the stencil. And we're going to get a fun, beautiful, solid print of that fun stencil. So that is the dark blue on top of the medium blue. We could have actually gone a little lighter here. That's pretty high contrast. So next time we'll know. And then now we've got a ghost print. We've got paint that is trapped underneath this stencil that is still wet on that plate. So here's where our prepared color comes in handy, because we're now going to lift this stencil up, set it aside, and then quickly transfer that trapped paint onto our prepared blue sheet. And this is how we're going to get the ghost print of that stencil. Look at that. So now we've got a beautiful ghost print of the stencil on top of the light blue. So we've got two different blues here. I'm going to do my teal again and go over the top of this one. So we're going to do the same stencil again on top of itself and see what we get with two layers of stencil, light blue and dark blue. Now you see that the opacity of that teal is blocking out the dark that's underneath it, but it's a great double layer effect. Now we got a lot of double blues going on in this one. I really like that. That's fun. And there you have a wide range of colors and effects with one stencil, one gel plate, one brayer, and whatever paint you have on hand. I hope this gives you an idea to be creative and to play with your gel plate and to experience art with whoever you're hanging out with these days. So happy Friday, and thank you for being here.